Hello. Today I'm going to discuss a large structure. I'm going to discuss the large structure of religion. And this series has taken me a year to make. And I feel like it's taken me that long because several reasons. Probably because religion is important to me, and I didn't want to, and it was hard for me to pull apart. It was too important, I thought, to rush, and I wanted to make sure that I did a great job for you guys and that I represented things truthfully and, honestly, and kind. I wanted to make sure to be very kind when talking about religion. Religion is very close to our hearts, so we have to be kind when we talk to each other about religion. So I am going to now lay out the history of religion, which when I was in college, I took religion classes, and all I wanted to know was the history of religion, and I couldn't seem to get that from any of my classes. And so I guess this is sort of an answer. Maybe that's another reason it took me so long, is because I've been searching for this answer for a long time. So I am going to take you back, very, very far back, past written language. So I'm going to take you much further back than most shows that you will see on religion, anything I've ever seen, quite honestly, on TV, in education, etc., etc. I'm going to take you back to using anthropology, and I'm going to take you back to the Paleolithic. I have made a timeline because it's very important to have a timeline to understand where you are. So my timeline, I wanted to make it really beautiful, but in relation to time, let's start here. So here is before humans. Okay, so this is the Earth as it progressed before humans. You can see that first there's rocks and not even oxygen. Later on, oxygen comes, then the fish. Okay, so you can see that the Earth progresses without humans for a very long time. This is important when we're talking about religion because religion discusses the beginning of the world, does it not? How we came here, how we got to be here, okay? So through anthropology, and through biology, this is the beginning of the world. No humans in existence. We go from beginnings to the Paleolithic, and the Paleolithic, this is when Homo Sapien comes to be. All before this in the Paleolithic, there are humanoids, okay? Australopithecus and all sorts of really cool lineages of, evolution, okay, that was leading up to Homo Sapien. But not until here does Homo sapien actually start, which is what we are. We are all Homo sapiens. Every human on the earth is classified Homo sapien. This is where we start, in the Paleolithic. Then, we start here, we continue through the Paleolithic, and we go to the Neolithic. Okay? And as you can see, the Paleolithic, well, it says 2.4 million years, that's the whole thing. So let's come here to where Homo sapiens come and to the end. And then the Neolithic is, what, 7,000 years? So in here, we've got about 1 million years in there, right? Let me make sure about that. 148,000 years. Okay? Then we've got 7,000 more in the Neolithic. No, I'm sorry. 148,000 years, all right, is what we've got to 0 to here. Okay? So 148,000 years minus, let's say, 3,000 for the Bronze Age puts us at 145,000 years that we spent in the Paleolithic and the Neolithic as Homo sapiens. So you can see the majority of our time on this earth is in that time period before written language. Okay? So that has a big deal to do with religion, because that's when our religion was formed, not when written language came onto the picture. We had religion way before that. And it's also where our, evolutionarily speaking, our psychology was formed. It's how our brains interact with the natural world around us was formed during this period, the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. Not during the only 5,000 years since written language. So we'll come back to that over and over again in this whole discussion, is the fact that we are really creatures of the Neolithic, of the Paleolithic and Neolithic. Okay, and why that's important we'll talk about later. So let's start out by saying, there's our timeline, okay? What's all this other stuff on here? So in the Paleolithic, we have anthropological evidence of spirituality. But it's not what we think, and it's not what we're often told. But I promise that you can look it up for yourself. Here is what we find in the Paleolithic. Can you see that? All of this. These are called Venuses. What they are is they are little pieces of pottery, humans made, okay? How do we know they're religious artifacts? Because we find them in graves, and we find them in temples, and in shrines, home shrines. So that's how we know that they're religious artifacts. They're all female, okay? So in the Paleolithic and the early Neolithic, this is what we find all over the earth. Anywhere that humans have started to make pottery, this is one of the first things that we find. No males, only females. These are found in Egypt. Okay, hold on. Pre-dynastic Egypt, you know, before anything was anything, okay? Here's a map of where these, and this is not comprehensive, this is just a little bit of where these are found. They're found in Mexico, Russia, China, Colombia, Ecuador, Palestine, Japan, Europe, Turkey, Greece, France, Ireland, Iraq, Pakistan, Peru, Egypt. Okay? No males, only females. This time period where these were found, these people were hunter-gatherers, and in the Neolithic they started to domesticate food by domesticating plants and domesticating animals. So anthropologically speaking, when we talk about religion, we have to understand that religion is connected to food. Religion is connected to how the invisible systems of the world create life-giving sustenance for us. people have always been interested in these invisible structures in the world. Invisible structures make avocados, right? I mean, really, what makes an avocado, you know? Invisible structures make the food that the hunter-gatherers would go and gather, make the animals that the hunters would, you know, go and kill and bring back. So, religion in this kind of life is focused on what gives me food and what happens after I die. Where do I go after I die? So you can see that these kind of things, when we look at this iconography, we look at this symbolism, because religion is symbolism, we see what they were concerned with, all right, and their thoughts on this process. Well, what are their thoughts? Okay, so let's discuss a few things that come out of this era as far as religious thoughts. Okay, so in these pictures, you can see that the female genitalia is pronounced. Okay, there's the triangle representing, you know, the female womb, the female exit from the body where life is coming from. Okay, it's a mystery, you know, the inside. This is the very feminine symbolism, inside. Okay, the power of inside, the mystery, the darkness. All right, the breasts are always pronounced. This is because there was a common theme of food. What do the breasts do? They feed humanity. So feminine symbolism is very food driven. Okay, the creatrix, the creator of life, the provider of food, these are very feminine, symbolic, religious themes of this time. You see, these women are fat, right? They're pregnant. They're full of life. Okay? They are producing life. They are giving life. This is the oldest one found. It was found right here, 35,000 BC. Okay? And you can see she's got big old boobies, and you can see that her genitals are pronounced, and her head was a tiny pendant, so she was to be worn around your neck. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now let's move from the Paleolithic into the Neolithic, okay? And basically what's happening here is, as people are learning to domesticate food, they're starting to more and more use religious symbolism to connect to people. Okay? So this religious symbolism back here is kind of about people. Obviously, it's very feminine, but you can see that, like, the heads are non-existent. The heads don't matter, really, because it's not really about people. It's about processes, cyclical food, earth, you know, processes. You know, earth goes through a process, a rotation every year. Things change during that rotation, and those changes can be predicted because they will happen again at the same time next year. They control the food. You know, some food grows in this time of year, some food doesn't. All of this has to do with processes, not necessarily so much humans. This was a symbolic sort of representation of the earth itself.